Can Mormons drink coffee? According to Gemini, that is the most Googled question about Mormonism. The short answer is no, but to find out more, stay tuned. Hey, my name is Greg. I serve as the president of the Seagull Lily Foundation, and we train born-again Christians for their interactions with LDS friends. I also love Utah, and I love to bring people to places that are a little off the beaten path. And so today we're on a sort of canal trail above Weber High School, and it's a really cool place that I like to bring people, especially people who may not be quite mobile, they can't hike a lot, but you can see all the Wasatch Front basically from this spot. You've got the really tall mountains over here, and you've got the valley over here, and the Salt Lake is out here to the west, and it's a pretty cool spot. You should come check it out. The story of Mormonism and coffee goes back to 1833, where the LDS Church was struggling with the same problem that a lot of American churches had at the time, and that is American churchgoers loved chewing tobacco. And while they're chewing their tobacco, they need a place to spit that tobacco. And thus dawned community spittoons. And so you can imagine that in places of worship, you'd have this big bowl in the middle of the church where people would publicly spit out their chewing tobacco. And look, I'm a little squeamish, and I gotta be honest, I think that makes me want to throw up. On February 27th, 1833, Joseph Smith gave a piece of revelation that he calls a word of wisdom. And that's the first line of the revelation that later became known as D&C 89 and is now referred to as simply the word of wisdom. And it counsels all sorts of general health initiatives. Since the Word of Wisdom's publication, LDS prophets have clarified its meaning. And nowadays, the Word of Wisdom is applied to things like vaping or tobacco or illegal drugs. These are generally good principles for people to follow in avoiding these sorts of stimulants. So what does coffee have to do with the Word of Wisdom? Well, it's that phrase, hot drinks. And prophets like Boyd Packer and Gordon B. Hinckley, they defined hot drinks as tea and coffee. And the 2010 Church Handbook also says that hot drinks means tea and coffee. This is where the confusion for LDS people comes in, because the assumption was always that tea and coffee have caffeine in them. And so they want to ban that harmful stimulant. But in 2017, the campus of BYU started serving Coke products, which of course have caffeine. And soda shops have popped up all over Utah where Latter-day Saints can get their caffeine in the form of soda. There's a popular Mormon website called Ask Gramps where people can get kind of old school LDS bishop advice. And on the subject of decaf coffee or decaf tea, Gramps says, look man, coffee is coffee. It doesn't matter if it's caffeinated because caffeine was never the issue. And that's where the confusion really comes in. It's not so much about the caffeine, it's about the actual beverage, coffee and tea. So why is this important? Well, here is where the rubber meets the road. You see, every other year, LDS people are supposed to go to something called a worthiness interview, where their bishop and their stake president ask them several questions. And one of the questions is, are you following the word of wisdom? And you need to answer that question as, yes, I'm following the word of wisdom, if you want to get something called a temple recommend card. If you want to see your child get married inside a temple, if you want to do temple work yourself, you need to be following the word of wisdom. And so LDS people are conscience bound to avoid coffee and tea so that they can keep that temple recommend card. The Bible warns us about violating the conscience. Do you remember in Matthew 17 when Jesus had Peter pay the temple tax, even though Jesus didn't have to pay it, for the sake of Jewish conscience? And then Paul in 1 Corinthians 9 tells us that he ministers a little differently to Jews and Gentiles, basically based on their consciences. And so I would like to encourage you to sort of bring yourself under the conscience of your LDS friends and not even mention these things or bring these things up, because frankly, the kingdom of God is not about eating or drinking or caffeine. Paul says in Romans chapter 12, verse 9, to let love be genuine. And Peter in 2 Peter 1, 7 and 8 tells us to put on brotherly love. And what's more, the writer of Hebrews in chapter 12, verse 14, tells us to strive for peace with everyone. And so, in my opinion, scoffing at these sort of religious, conscience, legalistic issues is insincere. It undercuts brotherly love, and it undercuts your peace with LDS friends. You see, you want to be a person that your LDS friend can trust and that they want to come to when they've got questions. And so if you're constantly hitting them with gotcha questions, they are not going to want to come to you in love to get genuine answers. Well, I hope that's been helpful for you. May the Lord bless your interactions with LDS friends, and may the Lord bless you as you carry out the Great Commission wherever you might be.